Hello, YouTubers. I'm going to talk about Japan. We're going to talk about Japan during the post-classical period today. We're going to talk about quite a few words about Japanese history at this time. We're going to start with the Taika Reforms, move on to the tale of Genji, talk about the Fujiwara Clan, the bushi and the samurai, the Genpai Wars, bakufu, shoguns, and daimyo. So as we move through this list, it's quite a few words all in one video. It's 8 of them, but you'll just have to bear with me. I'll try to spend about a minute on each word and get you out of here as quick as we can. My son is yelling at me, so I might have to go in just a moment. So first, let's talk about the Taika Reforms. The Taika Reforms took place in um, in the 7th century, the 600s, when the Japanese were attempting to become more Chinese in their political dealings. And so during the Taika reforms, they adopted a lot of Chinese customs. So focus on Confucianism, some characters, and the style of learning of the scholarly class of leaders, and the importance of education, and becomes more important in Japanese politics. The the Taika reforms didn't last incredibly long, and it was partly because the Japanese were unwilling to completely get rid of their aristocratic privileges. They were also trying to do something which was not really um, local to themselves. They were adopting something that was foreign, and so it didn't fit correctly. And so quickly, the Taika reforms were kind of forgotten. And as the capital moves during uh, the Heian period into Kyoto, the Taika reforms are kind of lost. So they end up it's a degree of becoming like China, but it didn't last. So the Japanese court life at this time, the aristocratic privilege that I was talking about, is the idea that kind of the elite were the ones who were ruling Japan. So the Tale of Genji is a novel about aristocratic or elite court life in Japan. And the Tale of Genji talks about Genji, who is an heir of the emperor, and basically his lifestyle of the rich and famous as one of the ruling elites in Japan. So it talks about his love affairs and his writing of poetry and reciting of poetry, and the way that he acts and dresses and talks, and the lovers that he has at the high court. And it's very filled with intrigue and kind of drama, and all this very hoity-toity stuff that really tells us a lot about Japanese high court life at this time, and the idea that Japanese high court life was this ultra civilized, um, kind of had an aura of sophistication and very clean, debonair status to it. So if that makes sense, um, very rich and ritualistic as well. So that's kind of followed by the gaining of power of the Fujiwara, and the Fujiwara clan had kind of become a very powerful clan by marrying into the imperial family and controlling politics in Japan. So the Fujiwaras basically claimed power uh, over the emperorship in Japan. This lasted quite a while until essentially the Japanese were um, kind of started to go into the feudal period, where power was really up for grabs and the power of the emperor was really dissolved. So the Fujiwaras were kind of the last imperial family before feudal Japan, and then their power kind of ended with that. So during the Fujiwara period, the power of local lords started to grow, and samurai, the power of the samurai started to grow. So bushi were the name for samurai leaders, the leaders of the samurai, and the samurai were the warriors. They were similar to what knights would have been in medieval Europe. So they were the warrior leaders in the warrior class. And the importance of this is, as their power started to grow, they became the symbol of power in Japan. So the emperor started to lose power, and bushi and samurai became the most powerful kind of ideas of who held power in Japan, especially as we move into the Japanese feudal period. So the Genpai Wars broke out. The Genpai Wars were a battle for control from the Taira and Minamoto families in Japan, with the Minamoto family claiming victory in the Genpai Wars. And this really struck the beginning of the feudal period in Japan, when the emperor's power was kind of gone now. He still had the claim and the title of emperor, but the real power was held by the Minamoto family. And the Minamoto family started this period of the shogunates, which started with what was called the bakufu. And the bakufu it literally means a tent government, and it was a military government in Japan following the Genpai Wars. And the bakufu eventually gave way to what would be called the shogunate. And so the bakufu was just the name for the government that took the place of imperial power, or the power of the emperor in Japan. And and then Japan during this time period was kind of troubled with civil war throughout the country. And as power kind of devolved and local families started to fight with one another for control of local areas, we started to see the power of the shoguns. And the shoguns were these military leaders who were tied to a family. And so these shoguns would fight with one another and attempt to gain the most power within Japan. So this time period was essentially a time period when civil war was pretty rampant throughout Japan. And daimyos were the warlord leaders in Japan who were powerful during this feudal period. And these daimyos took the place of what used to be called the bushi, who were the samurai warlords. So the daimyos became one of the most powerful warrior class. And during this time period, it basically showed that Japan had kind of fell into this cycle of feudal war, where they were constantly fighting, and the power of the emperor did not come back until the Meiji Restoration, which happened in the 1600s after this time period was over. So Japan was in this feudal period for quite a long time, and there wasn't a united Japan. This is kind of the big significance. While they had attempted to adopt some degree of Chinese government and culture, they had kind of more gone into this feudal period. So that's a lot to take in, and this period of Japanese history is probably one of the most confusing and the least unified, and it doesn't fit in well with the rest of the time period of world history, but there it is, the best I can explain it and put these pieces together for you. So don't forget to be awesome.